Today on Lightning Bugs.
So is the question, why are you so optimistic despite these dark times?
Sometimes optimism in music is actually raging against something and trying to insist the world in an opposite direction rather than an actual reflection.
Well, I think when I started looking at, I was writing songs about history for my last album, Omoiyari, and I think the reason why there's so much optimism in my music is that generally, I'm a generally happy person. And so when I look back at all these troubling times and writing songs about them, I had some sad moments, but a lot of what inspired me was resilience and rebirth and forgiveness and healing. That these people, they're survivors of any tragedy. They're survivors who have found ways to heal themselves and to live their best lives. If you've been traumatized, you find a way to heal yourself. And I think that is what makes human beings or being a human being, very beautiful. And so, I kind of find, the fact that we can, have, compassion and empathy, for strangers, to pick them up, to bring them along with us in this in a positive way. I think that's, what I like to focus on. And instead of just being really negative all the time about how awful we've been to each other.
Hi, if you're enjoying listening to Lightning Bugs, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps a lot. Hello, if you're here, you've made it to Lightning Bugs, my podcast about creativity. Today, my guest is the singer, multi-instrumentalist, and songwriter Kishi Bashi. He's recorded and toured internationally as a violinist with a variety of artists such as Regina Spektor, Sondre Lerche, and of Montreal. His latest album, Omoiyari, was released in 2019. He is currently co-directing a feature-length documentary of the same name about minority identity and the incarceration of Japanese Americans in World War II. This year, Kishi released his Emigrant EP, a companion piece to Omoiyari. Arranged and recorded over the last year, this EP serves as a time capsule of the 2020 condition and a continuation of the concepts explored in Omoiyari. His uses of art for activism, so cool. He's worked to educate people and continue to tell the human story one piece at a time. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with my friend Kishi Bashi. You've almost got this kind of grayish background there that almost looks like it's paid for until you see the soffit up over your left shoulder.
Oh, soffit? Is that the corner of a room? Yeah, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, those are called soffits, I believe.
Oh, okay. This is just my completely empty apartment devoid of art.
Does it stay that way?
No.
Do you decorate your house?
I just moved in here 3 days ago. So
but I mean, do you like the Spartan approach of nothing on my wall?
Like what if somebody stole the paintings off of a hotel wall vibe and empty room under construction look?
I kind of dig that. I've been criticized by my artistic friends. Get you kicked out of the artist world. But I kind of don't. One of the reasons I've got a backdrop up is it's just a white room. I don't know what's significant enough to put on my wall.
That's not your house. That's just a backdrop, like a fake one.
Yeah, that's bullshit back there.
Oh, seriously? Oh, I could have done that too.
You have a teaser for your movie. It's going to be, internment camps. It starts off, you're outside playing violin, I think in Arkansas or something. Is that this project or is this another project?
Yeah, Omoiyari. I've been working on it for 4 years, pretty much around when I saw you, and then. It starts with internment camps, but it's all about just Japanese American minority identity and music and my antics interspersed. Yeah, time is so weird because I remember we talked about it a little bit. Might have been more of a vague idea at the time. I don't know. But at the moment, I just happened to be interested in looking at these letters from a librarian in San Diego, I believe it was. I can't recall her name now, but I was shown these letters, and they just seemed to be such a, just such a profile in courage that I was interested in her story as the internment camps were springing up overnight, and they were rushing her children, basically her students, onto buses and out of town, and no one would speak up for them at all. Yeah, it's a sad part of history, I guess.
You think we're living through a sad part of history at the moment?
I don't know. I'm a firm believer that we have been doing sad things to each other since the beginning of humankind. So I think it's getting safer. The world, at least America. If you're, well, I take that back. If you're white and privileged, then yeah, the world is getting safer. But
you think it's getting safer for the privileged?
Yeah. I mean, there's, you could have an awful life, sure, but like compared to 100 years ago, when racism wasn't even a word and people were kind of tribalistic, and children could die from various things that they don't die of today.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's generally safer. So I'm kind of grateful that, like, when I study history, I'm always kind of grateful that we just don't live such a violent life like we used to.
Yeah. No. I definitely agree with that. I think something we don't talk about or appreciate enough is how many fewer deaths there are due to starvation is a big one. Disease. I don't know if it's especially your recent stuff, but your recent music certainly has an air of optimism, or at least kind of optimistic humanity in it. And so my first question to you was going to be about optimism.
So is the question, why are you so optimistic despite these dark times?
Well, not really. It's just I wondered how you felt about it, and if the sometimes optimism in music is actually raging against something and trying to insist the world in an opposite direction rather than an actual reflection.
Well, I think when I started looking at, I was writing songs about history for my last album, Omoiyari, and I think the reason why there's so much optimism in my music is that generally, I'm a generally happy person. And so when I look back at all these troubling times and writing songs about them, yeah, I had some sad moments, but a lot of what inspired me was resilience and rebirth and forgiveness and healing. That these people, they're survivors of any tragedy. They're survivors who have found ways to heal themselves and to live their best lives. And so
yeah, speak more on that again. When you say they're survivors, for anyone listening, let's talk about that project a little bit.
Yeah, well, see, like a lot of I just don't want to narrow it to just Japanese American internment camps, incarceration. I think concerning like slavery or Native Americans, and how basically if you've been traumatized, you find a way to heal yourself. And I think that is what makes human beings so, or being a human being, very beautiful. And so I kind of find, the fact that we can have compassion and empathy, for strangers, to pick them up, to bring them along with us in this in a positive way. I think that's what I like to focus on. And instead of just being really negative all the time about how awful we've been to each other.
I think it's amazing. I think that's what makes one of the many things that makes your music so awesome. That is that, and that's why I use the word humanity in the in the optimism. It strikes me as just very empathetic.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know you mentioned the Holocaust before, but it's I don't think they just talked about empathy until after the Holocaust. Because they were how did this, I don't think they started really teaching that until they realized how awful human beings we can be. We can be the most intelligent, sophisticated, scientifically advanced societies and yet do the most cruel things to each other. And I think that's when we realized that, oh shit, we need this thing called empathy to cultivate that so that doesn't happen again. And then teach, history, obviously.
And when you say they, who do you mean?
Germans.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, I think that's important to point out because they have done, in my mind, I just play piano, but my observation is they've been pretty brutally honest with themselves about it.
Yeah. And I don't want to speak for, people that, German people, but I think engaging in that kind of that dark history, embracing it like they have, I think they really healed or provided healing for people they've caused trauma to.
It does send humanity forward. When I was a kid, I don't think I had any history teachers that taught sort of almost like living history, like you're standing in it, to realize that you are part of history and you can't separate yourself from it before. And I think you're doing that. Did you ever see yourself? I mean, Look, I mean, the rumor is you got chucked out of Cornell for you flunked out. Is that true?
It's not a rumor. It's in my press release. So, but I think
you've stoked the rumor.
I stoked the rumor. Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely play up.
Did you really flunk out?
Underdog. Yeah, I was on academic probation. It's pretty. My parents are really distraught.
Yeah. Well, I'm distraught to hear that.
Oh no. No, they're totally fine about it. I mean, it's the best decision I ever did.
Why were you studying engineering and not history?
History is even like more far off than, say, the arts or music,
Really?
So I think so. Just the humanities is not something that Asian guys go into.
Please excuse my honest ignorance. Why?
Just like racial, it's a stereotype that I think like a lot of immigrant cultures have to deal with. Like they don't want their kids, they struggle to make it in America, so they don't want their kids to do something that is so fleeting, or I don't know whatever the word is for being an artist.
Not lucrative.
Not lucrative. Being a poor artist, and so they encourage things like being a lawyer, being like technical fields. Being an engineer.
Yeah. So your parents encouraged encouraged a STEM rather than a STEAM.
STEM. STEAM wasn't even STEM rather than STEAM. Yeah. So but my dad's also an engineer too, and I was just generally good at math. So I said, why not?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, my father wanted me badly to go into something that was technical, scientific. I mean, I just used to lie and say I'm going to be a scientist or a math. I didn't know what that meant, like a scientist or a mathematician.
Are your parents like academics or something?
No, not at all. My kind of working class, and the idea was, if one was going to succeed, you needed to have a degree, and it needed to be a technical degree that would get you, it could be a doctor or lawyer or something. It does make sense. Yeah, and your parents immigrated from Japan.
Yeah, and so, but my parents are very artistic in a way too. So they gave me music when I was young. Yeah. So that was a great gift, and they always encouraged me playing violin, and they let me do whatever I wanted in high school. So,
when did you start violin?
Probably when I was 6 or 7.
Okay. Did you do like Suzuki technique for kids? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do like classical? I'm assuming you did like classical piano, right?
Not piano. I thought I was going to be a percussionist, timpanist.
Oh, wow. So, a timpanist?
Well, yeah. I actually preferred just like straight up battery percussion. I hated mallets, but I did that all the way through. Like I too flunked out of college. Nice. And I went in as a performance major for classical percussion.
Did you go to like Chapel Hill or something? Is that where you went?
No, I went to University of Miami.
Oh, well, that's where Jaco went. Jaco Pastorius.
Yeah. I went to a master class he taught.
Really? Was he kind of strange and brilliant?
Yeah, he's a really good drummer. He never touched the bass. There was a drum set,
oh, really?
and it wasn't set up for the class. It was just sort of set up to the side, and he just went over and started playing it. I think he must have played drums for about 30 minutes.
Was he like?
He's really good.
Then? Was he kind of famous by then? Was he famous by then?
Oh yeah, hugely famous. Yeah, so, no, he was already legendary by then.
Hi Ben, this is Jessica Elliott from Louisville, Kentucky. My question for you is about composition. I wondered where you see the future of composition heading, both musically and lyrically.
I don't trust myself to make a projection into the future, but here are my observations about what has happened, at least over my life. We seem to be getting shorter, and that I don't mean height, but I mean we seem to be taking smaller chunks. Just think of pop music and think of My Funny Valentine. It's got about a minute and a half before that melody is fully developed and begins to repeat. Now, if you think about songs that are out there now, it's generally pretty fast. You usually have a quick repeat of a short phrase. Now, I think that rap music probably changes that a little bit, because while you've got repetitive, loops going on, you also have a much less predictable form and possibly even a longer amount of time before it repeats. So maybe that's the door. Maybe that's where we go back and the pendulum swings back the other way to a longer development. I would say an important artist in our time is Kendrick Lamar in that way, because I feel that while we've all, I say we all, I really mean we all, have been in a little bit of a popularization era of taking like, oh, I love the 80s. I'm going to make some 80s songs, or I love the 90s, or I like, I play R&B or pop or rap, or I play country music. And we're very defined, and they have rules, musical theater, whatever it happens to be. That I feel like Kendrick Lamar has done an amazing job of being one of those rare artists who is very, very popular at what he does and is doing his work on the shoulders of giants. So every technology and musical style that has ever come across this man's desk, he seems to use. If the pendulum doesn't fail us, then we get more waxing poetic and more lyrical then as we move forward. There's a huge song about driver's license. And I think that is longer development than we are used to in this current era, more of a metaphor than we're used to in this era. And probably in that way is an interesting throwback while keeping the sort of brutal honesty that we have been shooting for in modern times. So maybe that is something to look at too. I could go on. I won't. Thank you. Good question.
I feel like you could lack empathy and be a really awful person and still create incredible art,
That is fantastic. Well, have you experienced that? Like, I'm fascinated with that actually, because you just like, sometimes you meet someone who's just made all this incredibly humane, amazing stuff, and they're like just coked out assholes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Some people are just really talented at like harnessing whatever it is that inspires them, and then crafting it into their art, music, songs, paintings, novels, whatever,
You have experienced amazing art that comes out of people who you find to be not the best people. Like just not just someone you don't like, or you think that there's the humanity coming through their art that doesn't seem to be in them personally.
Yeah, it's the argument of separating the artist from the art kind of thing, And I think we tend to put people on pedestals. We want when they do something so amazing, you're just like, oh, this must be an amazing person, and then you find out that they're just people like you are with the same faults and addictions and desires, or not,
right.
And so like I think having empathy just has to do with being a really good person, and kind of cherishing humanity for how beautiful it is, and that we're not a bunch of goddamn animals, that we have like this ability to
I look up to animals.
I mean, like which animal is like
whales?
Whales,
humpback whales.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of gentle. They're pretty gentle. Is that because they're so big? They don't have to dogs? Dogs are wolves. Wolves are vicious. They're domesticated wolves.
Are you not a dog? You're not a dog person?
I like dogs, but I'm saying that they're animal. Have you seen wolves in the wild? They are vicious. They play like dogs do.
Do you think that creativity, art in general, what's the main reason you broached this in on a thing you did online, but you said it like, why do people make stories and why do people make songs and art? Why do you make stories, songs, and art?
Well, I think like once I assume that that's my job, as we all do, we have like, I just need to be inspired, and I think like part of my being a musician or being a solo artist, maybe, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is that people follow you as opposed to like, a band, for example. A band might be a bunch of personalities, but a solo artist is one person. And so if you are suddenly into basket weaving, or, you're suddenly into politics, or you suddenly, you're doing these things, it's a part of you. So you can't really hide from what inspires you,
Right. You're
And
not concerned about what you think is off brand or on brand or anything like that. You're just following your interest.
Yeah. And I think like solo artists, we have this, this kind of like luxury of basically not being so pressured. We can kind of do what we want,
Why bother to break into song and make these little things that we call songs and stories? Like why do you do that?
Well, I mean, it's to remind us that we are human beings, because if we're
why do you do that?
Oh, why do I do that? You mean, it's like
you're a person. Like, what is it that you go, I have to capture this and I have to share it with people?
Because I don't know. I mean, I have like so many. I do it a lot for my listeners, my fans, because I know they're listening and I know they want to hear more music. And I get a lot of messages of people just like, I can't wait to see what you're doing, or, your next song and this and that. And I'm sure you hear this too. So it's like, basically I've got, whenever I explore things or I look for things, I make it for myself. Yes. But I also make it because I know people might actually be inspired by my, similarly to my own inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, that has always been the cool kids say they make stuff just for themselves. And really the truth of it is we do make it to share. And we are inspired by people saying they want to hear another Kishi Bashi song.
Yeah, I'm very driven, like if I didn't get like people saying that, I don't know if I would, I might be doing something else. Who knows? But
when you first did it, before you had people asking for it, do you know why?
You're talking about the hustle early on, when you're just like struggling to be respected and understood, I guess, like as an artist. And I think that is like the main driving force initially. And then
it's ambition.
Ambition, yeah, because you want to be like acknowledged for your skills and like, because you have this passion for music. Of course, music moves you, right? So you do all these things and you get some acknowledgement, but whatever insecurities you have as an individual are like amplified because this is your only way. Like for me, I'm like a nerdy Asian kid, so it's like that. This is like my outlet to being acknowledged, like accepted, and so I think, well, if a lot of musicians, I bet, can relate to this.
Seem pretty goddamn cool to me.
I don't know. I don't
like in a good way. Like I look up to you. I'm like, wow, I want to be like that. I feel like a fucking dag.
Yeah, whatever. I want to be like Ben Folds when I was so whatever. You know what I mean? So
you think a big driving force in making songs to begin with was ambition, and then some of it, as if I hear what you're saying, is like kind of shoring up some of your insecurities. It's like feeling better about yourself.
Yeah, better about yourself, feeling more attractive, or whatever. Whatever you. A lot of musicians are rarely the jocks in school, right?
Yeah,
so you're just like
you were successful in attracting a mate.
You mean I was married? Is that what you're saying? A mate. I mate, like an Australian, like a buddy.
Yes, and you procreated as well. So
I did procreate. Yeah.
Yes. Your genes are strong.
Why is it so scientific like that? Is it like a laboratory or something?
Well, here's the thing, though. Yeah, I'm still trying to drill down on why you do it, and what I mean is not like why you just engage in the craft, but when you're making a song, why a song? Why do you need to do that? Like, yeah, sure, if there's a demand or you're ambitious, but at some moment, something has to be a personal, personal for you. Can you identify at all why you bother, aside from the other stuff now that we've gotten that out of the way?
Well, it definitely moves me. If I won't release something that I'm not excited about. I don't know. I feel guilty sometimes, because I have like a lot of, I'm good at analyzing my music and fixing it and working. I'm like good at music. You know what I mean? It's a privilege.
What is it you feel guilty about?
As a modern, like a member of society, we're always acknowledging our privilege, right?
Yeah.
And of like wealth and inequality and stuff like that. And people ask me a lot of people ask me like, how do you feel about yourself? And I'm pretty confident about myself, but I'm also very privileged because I'm good at music. I understand stuff. Like I can analyze it, like I said, but I also, Yeah, this is tangential, but I also struggled for years.
No, it's not tangential at all. I think it's very interesting. So you struggled for years.
I mean, I started Kishi Bashi when I was 36, and I had a kid, and I was in New York, and I felt like a peasant, and that's why I had to leave New York ultimately with my family. But it's kind of like I've been hustling all my life, but it's kind of the thing where I look back and I'm like, oh, I don't know how to stop too. Maybe you can relate with this. It's just you have to constantly, now that this is your job, people expect things from you. You have to find ways to be creative. Which luckily I haven't really hit any walls yet, but I think for me it's just for example, moving to Montana. I don't know if I told you this. I moved to Montana for the summer, for the rest of the year.
No shit. So you're not in Georgia? No,
I'm in Montana in my new yuppie apartment. With my studio. But that's the kind of thing is you have to constantly look for inspiration. I just get bored with myself.
Yeah,
a lot.
I think you're an incredibly empathetic, honorable person, and this is from having worked with you just for a moment, listening to your music, and watching what you do out there.
What makes me so honorable?
I think you try to do the right thing. I think you ask yourself, and you are very suspicious of all kinds of ulterior motives, and you're suspicious of your position in the world, whether it's privilege or whatever, and you recognize inequality. And I think you also it's very honorable to put a lot of yourself and so much craft and care into your music. Just from musician to musician, fella to fella here, I would take the guilt part out of it and here's why: you're sharing your gift. You have worked hard, and you're working hard, and you're doing things for that is a gift for the rest of us. I had to catch up on your music, and I went to sleep feeling awesome last night from listening to it's this beautiful music. It feels great. I'm not sure why the guilt is in there, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I deeply, I love your music too. So when you were doing the orchestra thing, I was like, oh shit, Ben Folds is doing exactly what I want to be doing.
Can I get you to give us an exercise?
Oh yeah.
A weekly exercise?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Okay. You want it?
Yeah.
I got a good one.
Yeah, let's see it.
I don't know if it's good, but okay. So what you do is you go through your phone.
Okay.
Once a week on a Sunday.
Okay.
You go through your phone and you look up somebody that you were friends with, but you definitely don't communicate with. That's creative.
Okay.
Right. Somebody you haven't talked to in a while. You had a relationship with, but you just but you probably wouldn't call them.
Right.
So you call them and say, hey man, I was just thinking about you. Something reminded me of you. Hey, how's it going? etc. And then ask them what they're up to, and then what have they been doing to stay creative. But if you don't have the balls to do it, call that person, then you delete their number.
Oh, that's good.
It's high stakes.
Oh, that's good.
Because if you're not going to call them on a Sunday, I
haven't gotten a multi-week exercise yet. This is the first long-term, this is the first commitment. Okay. What I heard you say to me was that we are going to look through our phone or our Rolodex, whatever it is that we have, and we're going to call someone that we haven't been in touch with. Does it have to be a creative person?
Well, isn't it about creativity? You can ask them about what they're up
to.
I guess not.
With someone you saw as having ideas. Okay.
Yeah, somebody you've been involved with creatively in the past. How about that?
Okay. And you're going to call them, see what they're up to, just connect. Or if you're not going to do that, you got to delete them.
Yeah.
What's the reason for the method behind the madness, or the madness behind the method?
First of all, with COVID and stuff and just the way social media is, it's just texting and the occasional heart, and the thumbs up and stuff like that. And it's so impersonal. Yeah. With COVID, I made I like calling people.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, what's up? And it's it's so much better than, as I age, I'm actually looking for real connections. I always liked fiddle music, I never dove into it because I think it comes back to that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Of like, it's not my music. It's not for me to play, but I think recently I'm
put a pin in that. I want to talk about that later.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I realized like, recently I was just like, you know what? It's like I was talking to Mike, the banjo player in my band, Tall Tall Trees. And he's like, he's from Long Island, but he plays banjo. Like he looks like he owns it. Like he owns, he plays like Appalachian music. He lives in Nashville now, and he's like, oh yeah, I have imposter syndrome too. It's like, the more I think about it, it's like, why do you have to be from Kentucky to play Appalachian music? Is it really yours, or is it just some kind of like a club that they've like created for themselves?
I know.
You have to be culturally attached. And then that's when I realized, look at me, I'm like I'm an Asian guy playing a violin, which is a European instrument.
Yeah.
So where do I fit into this? It's like, maybe I should just do whatever I want.
Maybe you fit into it because you're a talented human.
Or just a musician,
Yeah. Or a musician, a hardworking musician.
Yeah. Like, I don't think you can own when you think you own a style or you have to be culturally with it, I think that's a little exclusionary, not fair.
Well, one of the beautiful things about art is that when you collaborate with people from other places who look different than you and speak different languages and have different histories, you really do connect. And I think we do walk a dangerous line when we worry a little too much. I think exploitation is one thing.
Yeah.
But I think we need to be careful not to lose that, like you shouldn't feel, it shouldn't, I didn't find it of note at all as just some dumb white guy that plays piano, that you're Asian and you're playing a European instrument and you're playing indie rock or rock. Shit just didn't occur to me. It just doesn't occur to me. What occurs to me is I hear great music and I see a hard-working artistic individual. That's it.
Yeah, I think enough people don't care, and they come to my shows and they sustain my career.
People that don't care sustain your career.
Obviously, if it was an issue for them, they probably wouldn't come to my show. You know what I mean? So, or help tell their buddies about my music. So
our job as artists is to cross those lines as much as possible, I think.
Yeah, and I think like music. Did you listen to that 1619 podcast about slavery, New York Times?
No, but I will.
There's an episode on music. It's really good. And they start off with, they talk about yacht rock, and it's a black guy listening to yacht rock. And he's like, what the hell is this shit? Like it's like basically white people just singing funk. It's basically yacht rock, like, Michael McDonald, singing like Earth, Wind and Fire, whatever, so that's his analysis of like checking out yacht rock, and then they get into minstrel music, and then, how banjos were basically, it was an African instrument, and then went from and now barely any black people play, and it's just a white person instrument,
Yeah.
With the exception of a few people, but then they talk about like how, like on these ships, like you'd have like a Portuguese ship and you'd have like, sailors from all different kinds of countries playing music with their instruments, like kind of blending together, like, and then even in New Orleans, you're just talking about just musicians who just like really they don't care about the heritage of their music. They just want to play music.
They just want to play music. Yeah. How do you feel about long form projects? Like, I jumped into a book and a concerto. You're 4 years into a movie.
I think we're older now, we're as aged indie rockers, you can handle longer projects, I think that's
really
just how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think as you mature as a person and an artist, you can handle longer forms. Yeah.
It's like buying a house. When you're 20 years old, you don't think about buying a house, like investing in your future, 15 years, loans. No way.
Right.
Live in that cool apartment downtown. But I think like as you grow older, you're like, oh, I want to do something more meaningful. If it takes time, it takes time. And you have that time, once you get older, I feel like more and more time.
Aging rockers, not that you're being interviewed by one, but like at what point when you're a kid, you're like, that guy needs to stop making music. How do you feel at this point in your life? Like, did you ever feel like that when you were a kid? Like you'd see we won't name anybody, but you just see someone and they're like, 60 years old, in tight pants, rocking that shit with a mullet, and you're like, they should quit. How do you feel? When are you gonna? Do you think you should ever quit?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, when I thought about like my popularity, I look at my Spotify plays, blah blah blah, and I think about it, I'm like, oh, I'm like 45. What kind of like, I'm not a pop star. I'll be 50 in 5 years. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I'm 55, bitches.
Oh yeah, what's it like up there, man?
Besides having to sit down to pee and looking at Lexus and stuff like that.
Did you say looking at Lexuses?
Yeah, it's a joke from Randy in the song.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's like I'm fine. With it. I'm never going to be a pop star. But I have respect.
Wait a minute. I got to talk to my booker. I asked them to book a pop star. What is
only
this?
pop stars. But
you're a pop star to me. It's all relevant.
I'm not like Justin Bieber. I mean, that's in my head. That's a pop star.
It's true. There aren't many of them. Well, it's not the era for it.
Well, no, there are pop stars,
but there aren't many.
There's I don't know. That's what we don't know because we're like old, So it's like they're out there. They're on TikTok.
Oh, I wanted to also tell you, Mr. Steak.
Oh yeah,
it's a place in my heart because when I was a kid, my parents, we went out very rarely. Would go to a restaurant.
Oh, know the restaurant, Mr. Steak?
Yeah.
Damn.
We went to Mr. Steak, and my father told my brother and me that if we didn't behave, Mr. Steak would come out and cook us.
What?
He said Mr. Steak is in the back, and he's really mean, and he has his fingernails are so long they're curled like that. And we were so scared of Mr. Steak that we actually ducked. When we were driving off, my father said, "Duck, get in the backseat. Mr. Steak's coming. He's coming to get you."
What?
Why did you write Mr. Steak?
Oh, because he's grade A, I mean, why not?
Where do your words come from, do you think? Like, are they first or second?
That one, okay. Oh, okay. Well, let's
go back to Mr. Steak. Where did that come from?
Okay, I wrote that in the back of when I was on tour with Of Montreal. I was in their band. And I wrote that in the back of the bus, and then I sat on it for like 4 years until I released it because it wasn't appropriate for my first album. And I think I wrote it because I wanted Sola. She was like a kid, so I don't know, just like what's more fun than a dancing steak, And then to answer your second question, I think it was like, I'm always music first. So I hear if the music's not inspiring, then there's no words ever.
How long do you put off the words?
Until the music's good, I guess. I'll be like, and I'll have like some melodies, but like actual like words that tell a story are usually the sound of the words. The sounds I like turn into words, and then the words I craft a story out of it.
I was talking to a poet, Alice Major. She's Canadian. I think she's absolutely brilliant. And she was kind of making me feel better about my tendency to do exactly what you're saying. Because
you're like
to
that
her,
too.
the sounds of the words are tapping into a much bigger thing than you think.
I think it's like an instrument, It's like that's the way I see it. Yeah, so that's how you do it. It's like you like the sounds first, and then you make a story out of the words. Yeah. It's interesting because like Kevin Barnes is not like he's like words first. He's like, I hate you, goddamn, I hate you. I don't know. He puts, and then
that would be a good song. Yeah.
That's a way to do it too. But that's just not the way I work.
NPR got you to do that song. Looks like they gave you a month for voices that can't sing.
Yeah.
Did the words come first on that? I mean, that sounds like a pretty specific song.
That one, the music came first, I think, like always. Yeah. And then I had a good feeling about it, and then I had to make it, and I had to make it to order.
Then you sort of retrofit the concept.
Yeah, it was a struggle because I don't want to be like too preachy ever.
Yeah,
in my
you're
songs,
not.
so.
I think that's one of the things that's so great about your music. I think you don't assault anyone, and that's yeah.
I'm not like a union singer, or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but
Well, it's like Billy Bragg.
Whatever messages I have, recently are like super important to me. So, I do try and get people emotionally connected. And I like to talk about stuff before, if it's like that kind of song, like talk about it, set up the song with like a message, and then do the song, and then people just kind of like, it just marinates, as they listen to the song.
Well, I mean, essentially you've become an activist. You're an activist artist.
So yeah, I mean, I wish I could do more, but sometimes I just want to go out and just veg and make music, and post pictures of mountains, on my Instagram. So
yeah, I don't want to make it too much into a therapy session, but I do want you to work on the guilt thing, the inadequacy thing. We've talked about that.
Okay, guilt. Work on it. Okay,
because you're giving. This is what I want.
Flagellate myself. Is that how you do it?
No. Let's avoid the self-laceration.
Okay, this thing.
Yeah, none of the beating yourself on the back. None of that stuff.
All right.
Because when even the most inane sounding music out there, marching band music, whatever, polkas, can make people feel good, and it's got a place. And yours happens to be it's even better than marching band music. You're even better than Sousa.
I love your the acapella album you have.
No, thank you. That was fun.
That thing is amazing. It's like what happened? Did you hear one and then you just like, I want more of these? Is that what happened?
Well, I think the two things converged. One was that I always wanted to be a songwriter, that other people played my music. And that never happened. But then I started finding out that all these acapella groups were doing it. I'm like, I want to record this because someone's covering my music. And that was the first, that was this is a way for me to hear my songs not done by me, because I thought they did them better. And I think the second reason was because I was fascinated when I was a kid with field recordings. Yeah, which is the opposite of what we do today. Like when we're making records, it's the opposite of a field recording,
You're like going into the wild of a college sorority and like recording the acapella group.
If you look at it like a hack anthropologist, that's precisely what it is.
This is what I just tell people is just so Kevin Barnes of Montreal, this is kind of stuck with me. When I first joined his band, he's like he told me, he's like, hey man, good show tonight. This is how you stay in the band. Play your ass off and don't be a dick. So he's like, just do your best, and then just don't be an asshole to people around you. And then, and I was like, oh, it's so simple. It's because, that's what I think it boils down to that. It's just, you have to be the best that you can possibly be, so that when an opportunity arises, you are prepared. And then you just don't want to be, you just want to be a friendly guy, So
did he feel like he needed to give you that advice? Like, had you done something?
No. It was the first tour. I was like nervous. I'd practiced a lot, and it was we were kind of drunk, So, but it stuck with me because I was like, oh, it's so simple. And even today I was like, yeah, it kind of boils down to that.
Words of wisdom. All right, man. You're a force for good. I love your music, and I can't wait to see you back in the States sometime. And, and we's gonna sign off. Hi, if you're enjoying listening to Lightning Bugs, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps a lot. Thank you so much for watching Lightning Bugs on YouTube. Check out more episodes and subscribe if you have not already. You can also listen to Lightning Bugs wherever podcasts may be found.